Hi, I'm AMC Thorn, and this is my art tutorial on how to draw a head. First, before we begin, it is best to have a digital tablet for this, since it's way easier to draw with compared to using a keyboard and mouse. To start off, we're going to create a file with either Photoshop or any other sketch app, but for this tutorial, I'm going to use Photoshop. We're going to go to the side and create new by pressing create new, and we're going to have a document going to call up that says new document. Here, I already have my own document set up already, but most likely since you are beginning off, y'all probably don't have this. But for landscape dimensions, I have it set to width of 11 inches and the height to 8.5 inches. Have the resolution set to 300 pixels per inch. Have the color mode set to RGB color if it's not already set, and have it set to 16-bit. We'll have the background color automatically set to white, and have the color profile set to RGB, which probably going to be set to RGB automatically when we have it set to color mode, and have the pixel aspect ratio set to square pixels. For portrait dimensions, all you have to do is switch the width and the height dimensions of landscape, and voila, everything else the same except the height and the width for the portrait dimension is going to be switched over. So we're going to hit create, and we're going to have a new document. Well, I recommend, because this is for background, the background layer is going to be locked. So what I would do is go to the side right here on layers at the bottom right corner and click this lock to unlock it, so it'll be set to layer 0. I'm going to create a new layer by going down below it and clicking the square with a plus in it. I'm going to create a new layer. This new layer is going to be transparent when you turn off layer 0. And when you hit layer 0 back on, it's going to be set back to the white background that we had from before. I'm tripping my words already. Excuse me, y'all. But I'm going to have to press the brush tool in the toolbar, and I'm going to show you so far what I do to draw things in general. I usually combine shapes, like for a head, combine a circle and like a rectangle, or at least like a something close to a trapezoid to get the shape of a man's face. Okay, but you have to combine a circle and a rectangle and add guidelines. What I usually do is add guidelines to check myself when drawing like eyes and the ears. Usually the eyes and the ears are lined up together, so when you draw the eyes, the ear is going to be near the same level. And eyes basically can be like various shapes too, like combining, like say, imagine like ovals, combining certain shapes like triangle, or they get their own definition of like eyelashes or eyebrows or the structure of the eye. And usually the eyes, even you go about the side of your face, near the edge of your eye is connection of your ear. So basically the ear is basically close to the line of your eye, and the top of your ear goes up to your eyebrow. And the ear, you can just imagine like a simple oval to the side of the face. And when your ears to the side, usually it be cut off, so you imagine like adding like a point to it to show, or not as much of it that's cut off at the edge. And usually when I draw heads, I also draw other parts of it, and sometimes go over the parts of my own face with my own hand. Make sure your hands clean first, especially during these times. But it takes combining shapes, because like for the neck, I combine triangle. You could even tell it's basically a triangle for parts of the own neck and parts of the shoulder even to start off. But yeah, for the nose, I usually just swoop down and then combine like a diamond or a triangle down to get the structure of the nose. And for the mouth, just a swoop. And I always add a chin on the bottom. For eyes, sometimes best to structure your eyes up where, like, say if you feel like you might need to make sure they are facing the right direction, put the guideline down. Probably should have put that on another layer. Let's get rid of that. Command Z or Control Z to do that. But I'm gonna add another layer, and for this layer, it's gonna be basically to check myself, and I'm gonna call this eye checker. Eye checker. But it's best to name your layers. I almost forgot to point that out, so that way you can remember and go back to it based on the names. Like for this one, I'm gonna call it, instead of lazy, I'm gonna change it back to, instead of background layer, I'm gonna call this rough sketch, because this is basically a rough sketch of what I did. Rough sketch. So that way I know which layer is which, and it'd be so much easier to keep up with. I'm gonna go back to eye checker. What I'm gonna do is basically put lines to where the line of sight of the eye is gonna be, and like basically a triangle right here. And I want you to put that also as a different color so you can see it better. Okay, I'm gonna choose a different color for this one this time. I'm gonna change it to blue and switch it by clicking the arrows. On this part, you can see like two arrows combined to make like a half a square on the edge near the color, two colors. Use this by clicking this. You can switch the colors that you set, and right now I haven't set the blue. But what I'm gonna do is put two lines and let them cross to create a triangle. And by doing this and changing the opacity over here to side on the layers to the lighter amount, I'm gonna change it to 49% right here. I can see where I'm gonna put the eyes at, and I'm gonna change back to red and have the line of sight here. And when I turn the eye checker off, yeah, that still don't look right, does it? The right eye still feels a little off, and I just erased part of the background layer, didn't I? Yep. Okay, turn that back on and erase some parts of it. And if you see, most likely the line of sight so far should be to the corner. Now see what I missed up. Oh, bruh. Yeah. Blooper, bloopity blooper. I might just edit this out. Nervous AMC Thorn already messing up. Yep. You don't get this nowhere else. Okay, but jokes aside, let's get back to what I was working on before I just messed up. But basically, what I was trying to do earlier is basically put the line of sight to the corner, and by doing so, it'd be way easier to see where I'm supposed to have my eyes look at. And I'm going to change the opacity down to 50 or 49%. And process of elimination, I now have two eyes that's looking at the corner of the page. But now back to drawing the rest of the head. So for a woman, female head, I usually combine a circle and a triangle. And then I also add another triangle, or like to get the chisel part of the jawline. But usually a female head is drawn smaller than a male head. So I'm gonna also fix that right there to make it a little more slender in size. But usually a female head is usually smaller than a male head, and have, instead of a chiseled look jawline like the male is right here, they usually be slender and swoop in and more curved instead of jagged. And sometimes even the neck is drawn on the slender side. But one thing, for like some, you see like drawing cylinder, triangle, and then like very small neck. This may work for cartoon, but for like drawing like head, like a realistic looking head, it's best to have it where the neck is able to hold the head. When drawing the body, the structure, make sure that it's able to support the the head and the neck, and don't be too small. Like, when in doubt, try it out. It takes time and patience. What I usually do is lots of sketching and practicing, because practice is key. Okay, since I showed you the layout for it, drawing ahead so far, I'm gonna exit out of this one and create a new file. And now we're gonna draw from a reference photo. I went to pexel.com to find some photos, and the photo I'm using so far is from Rachel Clare. So shout out to her and the other artists out there on Pexel. And here, I already have it set, downloaded, and in a folder that I call reference photos. All I'm gonna do for a Mac, all you gotta do is click and hold down and drag it. Then change the size down to where you be able to use it from the side but still having a space to draw. Another reason why having a landscape usually is for the dimensions is that way you have a place to put your photo and have space to draw on the side. And when you're done, you can crop it down to a portrait size and have the portrait of what you drew all together. But what I'm going to do is create a new layer and show you how simple shapes can be combined to draw a head. I'm on a new layer called layer 1. Make sure you're on a separate layer. Always make separate layers so that way you don't draw on top of one layer that you might need, like the photo. I could just basically, since I drew the circle right here, turn the layer off by clicking the eyeball on the next to the layer, and it's gone. And click it back for it to be visible again. But what I usually do in drawing heads is combining shapes, and same for drawing anything in general, but combine it is by combining shapes. You see that I add a circle, then I add like a trapezoid like shape at the bottom, then add another trapezoid like shape on the side, and for the back of the head, a trapezoid like shape and a trapezoid like square, and a triangle right here. And for the ear, I combine it with a circle or oval like shape. And when I turn the photo layer off, you see the shape. It is literally like combining shapes. So when it comes to drawing, it's not as complicated as it may seem. At first, it's complicated, but with time and practice, you'll see what I see so far when it comes to drawing, that all you have to do is combine shapes. I'm not saying that everybody sees that way, but what I'm saying, you could transfer what I put in this perspective into your own and practice. So I'm gonna erase from this layer, turn that layer back on, and erase from layer 1, and let's get to drawing. I'm gonna call this layer right here the layer 1 that I used to show you how I combine the shapes for her face, and call it rough sketch. Always name your layers so that way you know where you're going back to and know which layers which, so you don't get mixed up. And limit your layers. Like, it's good to have lots of layers every now and then, but when you have so many layers that you don't know which is which, every now and then, when if there's layers that's gonna be combined at the end anyway, like say the skin layer, if I had like 3 different skin layers, it might not show up right here right now, but you go to layer, and what you can do Usually you be able to merge down if you have more than one layer if you have something sketched out already. So let me sketch something out. Oh, and I'm on eraser, that's why. Okay. But we go to layer. It's best not to merge visible, because if you merge visible right now, you will merge everything. But right here, and usually instead of merge visible, it shows merge down. When you just want to merge down one layer. But since it's not showing up right now, I'll go back to it once we get there. But right now, I am going to get started to drawing the head. So first, draw the circle. And when drawing, it draw like more close to, it's not going to always be a complete circle, but to get as close, draw by moving your whole arm. As in, if you're able to move your own elbow in a circular motion, you will be able to have easier chance of drawing a circle. And then what I do is combine a rectangle. I probably accidentally made this a little too long, so I'm going to cut it down right here and erase this, because she has a small face, slender face, and a head in general. But you see right here, like I said before, that the eyes is close to the ear, and the ear is like near the tip of the eyebrow. It is always best to check yourself on certain things. This is on a rough sketch layer, so that way when I get rid of it, it's no longer there. But I'm going to leave it on the photo so y'all can see, and also for me to see how it's structured. Because once I get done with a rough sketch and start digitally painting it, I'm going to change the opacity anyway. So it's 100% fine. So, like, so I'm also going to put lines down to try to guide myself. And also, I'm going to put an extra one down so I can see where I need to connect the ears and the eyes together. And what I do when it comes to making eye, I make an upside down diamond to get the structure of it. But what I usually do, not again. Change back. Dang it. What I usually do to get the structure of how to get the eyes right, I put an upside down diamond, swoop it to get swoop effect, and the where the spacing for it so far to start off with for the eyes. And here I'm going to add a swoop here, like a tiny ellipse. Well, a sickle more like, to get the structure of the eye, and swoop part of the eye. Based on her eye, I see like rectangles, like there's probably like triangles shaped for eyes start off with. So I'm gonna erase this because I realized my mistake right there, and resketch. But what I do right here, there's triangles like shapes for her eyes. I'm gonna do a triangle like shape and use my guideline with a oval before to help me down with it. Put it right there so I can see it better. And have it close to here. But her eyes are like, based on this photo, is like triangles with swoops on it. And then when making a nose, the nose for this one, I'm going to call this layer shapes. And for this one, I'm going to make blue, but for the nose, The nose is like a triangle. For what I use a diamond. And then for the nostrils, two triangles. Two triangles. But you see, I'm gonna change the opacity down, and you see there's like combining shapes. Like I said before, combining shapes. So I'm going to create a triangle and cylinder. And I create that on the shapes layer, didn't I? Good. I'm going to copy and paste this rough sketch layer and call this shapes instead. And call this shapes 2. And right here, I can show you what I'm talking about after I get rid of this extra bit, shape layer. Fix the issue, but now rough sketch, erase this. And what I'm going to do for the shapes, yeah, they'll be lined up to where it was before. But yeah, need a little fix myself because I realized I messed up a little by having the shapes layer on rough sketch layer. And now back on the rough sketch layer, I'm going to show that I usually combine like a triangle and a circle. And then for the nostrils, to whooped. Nostrils. And I noticed I might need to make the face a little longer. I probably had it right before a tiny bit. And here, for the shapes, for the mouth and stuff, it's usually I usually try to add shapes here that I can see. Try to help guide me through the negative space of the face. But the definition of negative space is the space around your drawing. Like the space right here is the negative space for the face and stuff and the body. While right here from the mouth, there's negative space from the jawline to the ear. But I drew this on the shapes to try to help guide me through so that way I could check how far it is on one part of the face to the other and see where I might need to readjust. When it comes to drawing and making something, you always have to make readjustments and prepare to use Control Z. Control Z is your friend. And for Mac users like me, Command Z is your friend. To do a redo is Command Shift Z. For Windows, it might be, I think it's Control Alt Z, but I recommend you look that up in case I might be wrong on that. But okay, hopefully I ain't mess up here. Good. Okay, but when it comes to drawing, it takes time and patience. You may not get it right the first time. You may not get it right the second time. But when it comes to creating, and when you realize you finally get in it, it's very satisfying. It's very satisfying to create stuff in general, art wise or not. It's soothing, and hopefully I get to share the soothingness with y'all. The beauty of drawing, like, see, this is another good reason sometimes drawing your negative space, because I kind of messed up a little on parts of it. And by drawing parts of that negative space in there, can sometimes fix what I messed up on or might need to readjust on. Because now I see I might need to readjust on some parts of her face all together on this rough sketch. I'm going to draw another circle within the one I did to guide me earlier so I can get a better and let me do another guide here. And when I turn this off, I get more of an understanding of the shape of the head and see what I might need to work on some parts of it. And when it comes to drawing, when you ever get stuck and you need to readjust yourself, know when to take a step back from it. Because sometimes you might need to take a step back from it to try to readjust some parts. And you might, when you step back and just look at it, sometimes you might notice what you messed up and might need to readjust after the fact. I'm going to create another rough sketch layer. I'm going to call this rough sketch 2. And I'm going to go back to rough sketch, the first rough sketch layer, and change the opacity down. So that way I could work on top of it. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to compare the shapes that I drew on with the one I did before. And then I'm going to re-sketch it. And some of them I might just basically, it's like basically tracing over my old work, or my old sketch to try to see where I messed up at, cause and then add some new parts to it to see what work. There's also like sickles inside of our eyes to get the structure. Let me change the color of it. It's green color. It'll be easy to see, but here, what I did, I just created sickles to try to guide me parts of her eye. Made a mistake myself, but see, like there's different shapes added to it, and when I see what I might need to add, and what I might need to add some negative space to. Okay, what I'm going to do is create the sickle shape. Some spacing for because there's always gonna be some gaps in spacing for the in I just made that a little too big. And then check the negative space for the ear. Let's see. I'm gonna go back to the shapes layer and I'm gonna combine shape of the ear. Voila. Now I got the shape of the ear. Another thing it is best to do is also, I ain't been doing it, but always save. And when you go to saving, create various versions of it so that way, in case like you messed up and you got so far into it, you have a backup they can go back to. And then I'm going to create a second save file. Put save as copy this time. So that way, if I go so far into it and I don't like where I at, I can just go back to the copy. Voila. Now I have a good, decent, rough sketch of her face. And like before, like I said before, her neck is able to support her head. So always make sure when drawing that you make the neck able to support the head. And realize I put that on the wrong layer again. Readjust the nose. Check myself. Good thing I did. I nearly took part of it. Now, the lips. I'm gonna fast forward a bit. I'm gonna fast forward a bit. I know what you're saying. This doesn't look as like it don't look as good as it as the photo yet, but at least I got the structure of the face. And now what I'm gonna do is create another layer, and I'm gonna call this skins. Skin. That sounds disturbing. But right here, I'm gonna go and use the eyedropper tool, try to get the colors of her face. And I'm going to create another layer and call this palette. And this is going to be my color palette layer. I know which colors go back to. I got part of her cheek. I'm going to go back, get that color for part of her cheek again. Hey guys, this is AMC Thorn. I know this tutorial is aiming a good bit long, and I covered a good bit of what to do so far, and the rest is just gonna be adding layers, adding more to the color palette, and working on the piece. So I might put also the link down for the photo in case you wanna go along or at least work on it on your own. But I'm just gonna speed through the rest of it. This is AMC Thorn, out.